Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Hi, welcome. Excited to be with you. We're really excited to be sharing with you the upcoming energy cycles for the new year. We're live here on Saturday, December 10th. Come on in, join us, sit down. We'll be broadcasting for an hour. We'll begin with an overview of the year, and then we'll work our way into the 4 quarters of 2023. And that'll give you the highlights of the most significant challenges, the changes, and the growth opportunities that will be happening throughout the year. As many of you know, in our exploration, we access both the human design matrix and the astrological energies to give us the most complete overview of the coming year, so you can plan to use the opportunities to the fullest and be prepared to create the outcomes you desire throughout the whole the year and the holiday season. So this holiday season, we're offering our once per year holiday reading special. It's a really unique opportunity to work privately with Shaitan and also to work privately with me, getting coached by me. So first, you'll meet with Shaitan for a 90-minute deep dive into your human design. And this reading is really a must-have transmission from, it's just pure human design wisdom from really the master. So no matter if you've already had your first human design reading, or this might be your first human design reading, or if you've had several readings, Shaitan will meet you where you are and take you deeper into mastery with your design. So yeah, we're excited. We added to the special complimentary 1-hour session with me. It's a life and business transformational coaching session with me, 60 minutes of a deep dive. It's a really great way for us to work on implementing everything you've learned from your design readings and your understanding of your design, and plugging that into your life, your business, the way that you succeed in life. So it's a game-changing set of readings sessions, and we invite you to really take a look at it. It's really value-packed exploration of your highest potentials and your greatest gifts, and that's part of what gets illuminated. So if you want to get really crystal clear on your life and on your purpose, on your life direction, plus learn how to use your design to create the most successful and fulfilling outcomes for you, then our holiday reading special is for you. So to learn more and reserve your space, you can just follow the link. It's evolutionaryhumandesign.com/HD-personal-readings.
Or just go on the website and click on the link that says readings,
Yeah.
and you'll find us there.
The readings tab, yeah.
All right, so let's get started with our sharing for 2023. Some of you will probably know we spend time each year looking ahead into what's coming our way, and we try to pick out a title for the year. You know, what are the characteristics of the year that really stand out? And we had quite a consideration around this.
We worked hard on it this year. It was a perplexing year.
Because it's different.
To name. Yeah.
It's really different. And we've decided to call this year the dramatic wake-up call to heal global relations. All right? Dramatic wake-up call to heal global relations. And all of us can take part in this. And that's the important thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you a human design look at the kind of overview of the year, of what I've seen as essentially what's coming up this year and how to play with it. And particularly, I go to look at the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, to see what it is that's going on there in terms of what's the shape of the situation in the world and how the planetary influence is going to affect everybody across the board. These outer planets are what we call generational planets, so they move very, very slowly. I'm going to start with the planet Uranus. It starts the year in gateway number 2, the gateway of receptivity. And it's curiously in the second line of that, which is a line that we understand gives us access to unlearnable knowledge. And all of us are going to be really surprising ourselves in these weeks and months, recognizing all of a sudden we've had a download of some sort and we're not really quite sure where it came from. And what this download is doing is it's lining us up within our life. It's helping us be more receptive to what life is trying to show us here. Uranus is the breakthrough planet, the breakout planet. It breaks us out of fossilized concepts and takes us into whole different realizations about life. Later on in the year, it goes in gateway number 23, which is one of the voices. It's the voice that I know. So again, not only are we going to get these downloads, but we're also going to find ourselves saying things that, oh, did I just say that? Or did I just hear that? Or is that what I really meant to come through me? And, you know, it's opening up new grounds. That's what's happening here. We're going into the whole arena of what we call civilization. There's a whole new language or way of expressing things that Uranus is going to take part in for these next several years. Neptune, the next one out, what is it? It takes 100 and some odd years to go around us. So again, generational.
87.
Yeah.
Is this a quiz?
Well, I was just saying, you're the astrology, you kind of tune into these things. So it's in gateway number 36 for the whole year. So gateway number 36 is in the emotion center. So it's all about our feeling nature. And the 36 is the gateway in human design that's called the darkening of the light, or I call it crisis resolution. So what's going to happen here, and we're talking Neptune. Neptune has everything to do with our approach to spirituality. And just interesting to point out, in this last year, England did a census. And one of the questions was, what religion do people relate to? And they found out that less than 50% actually said they had a religious preference, that they had some kind of religious affiliation. And so what we're seeing is, you know, there's a shift away from standardized religions, if you will, and people are beginning to realize they need to work things out for themselves. They need to take charge of their life. Totally in tune with what we see with human design. But 36, the darkening of the light, basically is an image of you going into a tunnel, and the further you look into the tunnel, the darker it looks to be. And the bottom line here is to remember, be a light unto yourself. So taking charge of your own life, that's what Neptune is pointing us towards. Be responsible in our own life. Be prayerful in our own very particular way. Be meditative in our own particular way. The essence of our life is our experience. Pluto, the next one out, goes very, very slowly, 250 odd years to go around. Last time it was where it is now. There was this thing called the American Revolution going on, trying to get rid of the British and their unfair taxes and all this stuff. It seemed to work one way or another, but it was a very awkward time in America's history, establishing itself as a republic. The 60th gate is the gate we call limitations. And so limitations are basically kind of putting us to this place where this thing doesn't work anymore. You know, whether it's an institution of some sort, whether it's a government setup, whether it's a financial setup, an insurance setup, or, you know, a mortgage setup, whatever it is. Healthcare situations, all of these things, Pluto is pushing in there. It's a plan of transformation, and all of these things are getting shaken up. And during the year, Pluto goes all the way through the 60, goes back, retrogrades back again. So there's a portion of time, very brief portion, when it goes into the astrological sign of Aquarius, and it gives us a little inkling of, you know, oh, maybe there's another way of doing all this stuff.
That's about 2.5 months.
Yeah.
It's a process.
So just to say, you know, on a personal basis, it's time to look at how we hold ourselves back. What are the limitations we give ourselves needlessly? One other thing I'm going to talk about is the destiny path for humanity, the nodes, the north nodes of the moon. Starts off in gateway number 24, and this is the beginning, or let's just say it's the tail end, but it's the whole movement now of the destiny path for humanity is a new start. It's going into the quarter in human design that we call initiation. And so it's time to really look and see that. By the end of the year, it comes in alignment with Chiron in gateway number 51. 51 is going to give us all a huge wake up. And so why we call this year the dramatic wake up call to heal global relations, because we've got to get on the page with each other. So that's my brief overview of what I see with human design. And of course, I'll go into more depth as we go through the year, month by month.
So we're going to do we're just sort of right now looking at the overview of the year through human design, and I'm going to look at it with you through astrology. And I just want to say that the way that these two fit together, I find it's so beautifully complementary. Because with the design, Shatan was just taking us through all these keys. We're basically going through different gates and with the different planetary activations and reading that energy. And it's very much about the process of our life as it moves from day to day, really. And then with astrology, we're looking at the context that we're living in and how that contextual field of experience is being organized, and yet these two systems really complement each other really well. So from a planetary, what I want to do is not start right at the beginning of 23, but here we're still in 2022. I want to go back a bit and look at what we saw in the beginning of 2022 and throughout 22, just briefly, and then take us into 23. So we said in 22 that it would begin with the planetary energies that suggested a global crises that called for innovative reinvention. That's what we named the year. And we saw the year beginning with a retrograde Venus. Venus is about love and relationship and the way that we connect ourselves in pleasurable ways to our world. And we started this year with Venus retrograde. So, we've seen some extremes in a sense of the things that Venus has to do with, like monetary expansion. It's just skyrocketed and, soaring property prices and market gains and all that in the first half of 22, followed by then, what may now lead to a global recession. So we've seen the extremes. And Uranus, in a sense, is responsible for showing us these extremes. Uranus is the awakener to higher states of consciousness, and astrologically, it's firmly in the sign of Taurus. Taurus has to do with our values. So essentially, what's happening is Uranus is awakening us to perhaps we've sort of been on automatic pilot in terms of how we're living our lives and how they're aligned with our values. And if that's the case, let's wake up and ask ourselves, what are our values and what is it that we really want to commit to in terms of our way of living and our way of being? So we can experience some big shakeups. There's, in the course of the year, some monetary shakeups. I think we're going to go maybe into a whole deep questioning of the whole monetary system. The Uranus is going to bring this energy of just unsettling the status quo, which is what it does. And in the sign of Taurus, what it's doing is shaking up our values and our sense of security. So also we've got Taurus's association with the planet of relationships, Venus. And we saw that Venus, we start the year with Venus and the planet Pluto, planet of transformation, exactly together. So we know this is going to be a big year of really deeply transforming our values, getting really clear about them and committed to them. And also the year 2023 begins with the planet Mars in retrograde motion as well. So it's so Mars has to do with our work, the business that we have, our drive to achieve, our tendency to compete. In some cases has to do with aggression and war. And, to some extent, 2023 is going to be characterized by some disagreements, some opposing viewpoints, and some challenges to our values. And then further complications added by Mercury turning retrograde. So that happens coming up here right at the end of December. So we're going to begin the year 2023 with both Mars as a planet of action in retrograde motion, reconsidering a lot, and Mercury in retrograde motion, a lot of rethinking. So it's just not going to feel like that, often it does at a new year, like there's a surge of new energy. We're still going to be sorting out and dealing with and trying to complete and wrap up some things. And that's part of the great challenge of 2023 is to do the kind of cleanup that's needed to heal global relations, because until that happens, we're not going to have a healthy world. And with every great challenge comes also a lot of fertile opportunity. So we can take a look at how the next year is going to unfold. And
so it's just curious you're saying this about cleaning up 2022 before we can get into 2023, which reminds me of the name of January. We're working with a Roman calendar, and the January is named after the Roman god Janus. And Janus apparently had a face on two sides of his head, one looking forward and one looking back. So it's a perfect image for the beginning of this 2023. Got to clean up what's behind us before we get involved in going forward too fast.
Yeah. That we're sort of entering the year in a process of rethinking a lot, about how we do our lives and how we communicate and how we work. Yeah. So different start to the year. So do you want me to talk about
why don't you get going with the astrological viewing of the first quarter?
Oh, the whole first quarter? Okay.
Or just from the beginning?
I was going to talk about the major themes for 2023.
Go for it.
Okay. So if we, I'm not going to go into too much to the astrology of it, just to tell you what I see in the major themes coming up this is for the year, is that, going to have a shakeup and a breakdown, ideally, a healing and transformation of our values. And, that's unavoidable with the planetary energies the way they're moving. A deep questioning also of our religious beliefs, and a new exploration of our relationship to God or Creator or life itself, however you see that, with the planet Saturn, which is kind of where our lessons are in the sign of Pisces. We're questioning needing to come to a new understanding and new embracing of our relationship with spirit. It's part of this reworking of our values and questioning our values. And it's the up-leveling of ourselves as a spirit being, having an experience in third dimensional reality, right? So we will begin to relate to ourselves as the spirit being that we are. Then the higher qualities of whatever sign, whatever astrological signs we have in our charts, or whatever our design is, those higher qualities start emanating from us. So it's this process of aligning and raising our consciousness. And in a sense, we need to align our beliefs with how we take action in the world, and with what we do in our life or our business, which is all what the energies are showing. And then the first half of the year, the moving soul path for all humanity is in the sign of Taurus. So we're still in this deep question about our values. And then in July, that north nodal axis shift happens and moves from the sign of Taurus into the sign of Aries. So now with the north node in Aries, is it pushed towards some new growth, some breaking new ground. It's a shift from re-examining our beliefs and values in Taurus to deciding, which values really merit our focus, and then taking decisive action from them. And so we have these intense energies in the middle of the summer, the nodal axes in mid-July coming to a right angle with Pluto, the planet of transformation. So we're really looking at what direction are we going in? Are we heading in the right direction? Do we need to transform our whole focus and way that we're moving through life, or the direction we're going in? So it's a big question, and that the answer may be no, we're fine, we just need to refine it some, or there's some aspects of it are going through transformation, but there is this transformation of the underlying structures that really society have been the underpinning of society in both the 19th and 20th centuries, and those are starting to crumble. So we're asking, what new action is imperative when we get into that second half of the year, and the nodal axis moves into Aries. That then becomes the question: so what actions are we actually going to take? What's imperative? And I'll leave it there for the first quarter. All
right, let's have a look-see into the first quarter from the human design perspective. Mars, as we've talked about, it did a retrograde at the end of October, so it started going backwards from our point of view, covering old ground. And it's going to turn around to go forwards again January the 12th, but as we enter into 2023, it's still in reverse. And it's in gateway number 16 and gateway and the line number 4. So it did its turnaround in gateway number 12, which is the gateway called standstill. So Mars and standstill, you can't altogether see the two of them equating terribly well, because Mars is always want to get out there and do stuff. But it came to a screeching halt end of October in the 4th line. And the 4th line is the line of prophesying, seeing into the future. And it's not going to come back to that same point until the middle of March in 2023. But on New Year's Day, it's in the 16 and the 4th line. And the 16 is the gateway, we call it skill or enthusiasm. It's about looking at projects, looking at things in your life, and just seeing, does this have any merit? Is it going to go anywhere? And so we enter into the year with that Mars energy of just checking, am I still on the job here? Am I going to proceed the same way I've always have done? Or is there perhaps a career shift or a complete way of life shift altogether? And curiously, in human design, we're always interested in January the 1st, what is the energy of that day, the Roman calendar. But in actual fact, in human design, the new year starts on the 22nd of January, 21st, 22nd of January, which is when the sun enters into gateway number 41, which is the gateway of imagination. I call it imagination. It's the gateway of decrease. It's the kind of lowest point, in a sense, from which everything else can grow. And so absolutely make New Year's resolutions in January, but then redo them again on the 21st, 22nd of January. And just, the nature of the 41 is, in genetics, it's the start codon. It's the beginning of anything we get involved in here. And it's basically opening up the dream or the imagination or the potential, the possibility of what's coming up in the year ahead. Can we be masters of our own destiny? Can we actually select those experiences that would really bring us great merit? Can we go beyond the bucket list and actually start living things out early? And to me, the transformation that's going on in the world as all these things fall to pieces, it's opening up doorways that, yes, you can. And it's like, yeah, you always thought there was a brick wall there. In actual fact, there's a gateway now and things have changed. So all of us are being exposed in that way to see that Mars is really helping us reevaluate what it is that has been customary for us, the label we've given ourselves according to the work that we've been doing. All of these things can shift in this time. And we're going to see, is what we're doing now, do we still have the same skill and enthusiasm for seeing it through? Or is it time to change course, do something different? What we're going to have in this first quarter is we're going to get a lot of attention in the crown center again. There is this, as we enter into the year, Mercury is in the 61, the moon and the North Node Destiny are in the 24. So a lot of 2021, 22, we had this connection between the crown and the mind center, really shifting our way of thinking about things. And let's face it, the COVID or whatever it was that happened there shifted our whole way of dealing with life or experiencing life, or just we had to see life in a different way, whether we liked it or not. Saturn, which is basically our disciplines and our meditations and our stumbling blocks, and we might call it our shadow nature and the things we've got to work out and pay attention to in 3D, is going to spend the whole year in the emotion center in human design, one gateway after another. And it starts out in gateway number 49, the gateway of revolution. And so Saturn says, big shakeup, along with the outer planets saying big shakeup anyhow. And so all of us are going to really have to check in, see what is our attitude in our feelings. I grew up in the 50s, showing my age a little bit. I grew up in the 50s. Men did not have feelings until the 70s. It was all women's stuff.
We don't.
Well, so it's been a sharp learning curve, from the 70s onwards. So yeah, I got feelings, and yes, everyone's got feelings, and we got to be responsible for them. And just to see, we've got to live our life with clarity. The emotion center, when we really stand back and look at it, it's the center of pleasure. Yes, we're allowed to have fun. We don't always have to be under a constraint of goodness knows what, hell and damnation, if you want to go to the extremes of it. guilt and shame and all these things that have been heaped on us for one reason or another. If you really go into things, the word sin, when you trace it back to its origin, it means to forget. So the fact that we've been born in sin, live in sin, and die in sin, please let's do that. Let's remember what we're doing here. Let's take a grip on our life. And so Saturn is going to shape us up if we're paying attention through our emotional energies and stuff. I talked a bit, and Carol has talked a bit about, this kind of last phase, if you will, of systems breaking down. And if you're looking around the world at the moment, there are, I won't say protests going on massively, but there's a lot of discomfort in places where there's dictatorship, where there's hard line, where there's repression. Well, there are, yes. And, we always think, oh my goodness, we're coming to this thing called the apocalypse. What's it going to be? Where's it going to show up? What's it going to be? And I just, I found out, I used to study Greek, but not very hard, but I found out from the Greek, the word apocalypse means to raise the veil. Now, there's something of that kind of scene going on in Iran at the moment, raising the veil, would like to be out from underneath these things, these tents and whatever they are, these hijabs. There's, a lot of repression, zero COVID in a situation where everybody catches something sooner or later. There is, war being put on a populace, and there's all kinds of things that are going on. And what I'm saying essentially is we're going to watch these things. They're not going to go out quietly. There's going to be a bunch of protests on the way out. Just as I remarked, Pluto in gate 60, limitations, get rid of the British out of America, get rid of the British rule out of America. That energy is back again. There is a revolution in the air in that regard. And the thing of it is to raise our consciousness and to see how do we facilitate for these things to dissipate, to get rid of the hard lining of things. How can we meld our attitudes to things? How can we be more in touch with our feelings and actually allow ourselves to have pleasure in life? That's a major part of the year. But there are these complications, and that's why we're calling this year global relations. It's all about communications and global relations. And we can all play a part in that. Be a good tourist, be a good citizen, be a conscious presence here, and all kinds of things can shift.
So you want me to pick it up?
I can go on a little bit further into 2023, but that is the opening energy of it. We're going to just see a lot of the channel of 4130, which is this channel of opening up a new perspective, a new vision. All of us are going to have that possibility of just seeing things in a different light. Like I said, the doorways are open where we didn't have doorways before. As we get further on into March, we're going to get a bit of access to the money channel, materialism, and just to see there's going to be a lot of energy around that of being really clear. You suggested the monetary system is going to change in the world. I'm also going along with that idea of things as well. And it's just about being ready for how the shifts take place, not getting freaked out. There's always a way through. But just to see, don't feel like just because there's a big change taking place, it doesn't necessarily involve you. And we're going to get initiated into new experiences in March. We're going to get access through this channel, the 2551. This 51 that I said, Chiron is going to end up the year in the 51 and alongside the nodes of the moon, the destiny path for humanity. Chiron relates to joining the 3D to the 5D, joining the rule systems, if you will, to the, what can I say, the breakout or the breakthrough or the no need for the rules. The awareness,
the fifth dimension, right?
Fifth dimensional awareness. And if we're going to talk about evolution of consciousness, that is definitely part of the program. So just being open to that. We get into April, we have the Sun and Chiron together in the 51. This 51, it's the gateway of shock, it's the gateway of wake up, it's the gateway called the arousing. It's when you're in a house and the lightning hits the roof. Not only do you get the bang, the whole house shakes, but you get the flash at the same time. Like the 51 is a real wake up. And so Chiron, this whole element of healing the dimensions, getting out of the stuck programs and moving into, what can I say, a more spirited way of life. Yeah, that's what's a major part of these first 4 months of the year. What will you say?
All right. So good. Yeah. Well, I would echo a lot of that because we often see themes sort of weave in and out with human design and astrology. I start looking at the spring equinox, which is the point in time when the sun moves into the 0 degrees of Aries. And essentially that's another way to look at a new year's beginning, because Aries is the inception sign. It's about beginning. It's the very, very initiation stage of beginning. So always when the sun goes into Aries, we have a sense of new life, new beginning. It's spring in much of the world, but it's a resurgence of energy and life. So what's interesting about this spring equinox is that we also have a new moon on it at the same time. So the new moon at 0 degrees of Aries makes this, I guess, an extra strong equinox, a really powerful turning point, because the equinoxes are turning points. So this one to me seems like it's got a lot of emphasis with that sun, the whole new moon being right there as the sun goes into Aries, and then Mercury's also joining. So it's a lot about bringing our focus together, bringing our intention really clear, being aware, staying awake, not getting, sort of hazy or pulled into things that aren't true for us, staying in our truth. Jupiter and Chiron are doing this great sort of innovative dance together to find solutions to a lot of the challenges, and especially to find ways to foster new growth. So in the midst of all the challenges that we're experiencing in the world, we also have all this innovation going on, new systems, new ideas, new products and ways. And, we're really taking a big leap. I think we took one in 2022 and we haven't really acknowledged it yet, but we're going to see even more of that in 23. I mean, innovations, just, we're taking big leaps, and our consciousness has got to leap with it. So the other great thing about this spring is that Mars, which, Mars is the get it done planet, get to work, get things done, make it happen energy. And I don't think any of us really love it when Mars is kind of held back and going retrograde, which it did for 2.5 months. By now, when we get into March and into the spring, Mars has passed that station point. It's picked up its speed. It's at its normal speed again, and it's all, full steam ahead.
And all the planets are direct at this time. Right?
Yes. So it's a powerful time of emergence, of getting a lot done, of being creative, putting the energy out there, innovate new things, get them birthed, that kind of energy. So we'll see, as we go a little further into the spring, we will have another Mercury retrograde. Those happen usually 3, sometimes 4 times in a year, depending on how the year is structured. So we'll see that we're going to have another Mercury retrograde, this one beginning in May, when when Mercury also is conjoining Uranus. So somehow we're getting another, like, hey, be still a minute and really listen to your higher self kind of wake up call from that. And the question, it's a check-in, are we staying true to our values? Are we making the important changes that we know we need to make? So that's, I think, what I see in a nutshell for the spring. There is one other thing to bring up, and that's the planet Pluto, which, has been in Capricorn since 2008. It's going to dip into the sign of Aquarius on the spring equinox, basically March 24th, right at the equinox time. And I'll be in Aquarius until mid-June. So we have a little foretaste of what it's going to be like when Pluto firmly gets into Aquarius, and the whole transformational tone and energy and, way of moving in our world starts to change from a challenge to the world's systems, where it's been in Capricorn since 2008, challenging all the systems, to Pluto then going into Aquarius, the challenge is going to be, can humanity come together, for God's sake, and talk to each other?
Can we make heaven
Can
on
we,
earth?
like, work together? I mean, that's the beginning of that question that has to be resolved during this time when Pluto goes through Aquarius. So we're talking about the next, 20 something years from now. So it's an important juncture, this spring equinox period. And we also have 2 eclipses during this quarter. We've got a solar eclipse on April 20th in Aries, and a lunar eclipse following it in Scorpio on May 5th. So when we have a solar eclipse, that's the sun and moon together. We saw that with that new moon in Aries. And then the lunar eclipse that'll happen on May 5th, that happens with the sun and moon opposite each other. So the moon will be in Taurus while the sun is in Scorpio, right? Did I get that backwards?
I think it's backwards. I think, isn't the lunar eclipse?
The lunar eclipse happens in Scorpio.
Yeah.
Right. So opposite the sun in Taurus.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So, and then that solar eclipse, because it happens at 29 degrees, right at the very, very end of Aries, it's also in a very tight right angle with Pluto. So essentially, this eclipse that happens in Aries is challenging the position of Pluto. So what that means is that whatever really, it's going to illuminate this enormous task we have of bringing wholesale transformation into the structure, into the foundation of our society, or the foundation of our life. So it's as the old paradigm is dying away, a new culture is trying to emerge at the same time. So it's, birth is always kind of painful and messy. So that's essentially what's happening here. And then the lunar eclipse follows May 5th, 15 degrees of Scorpio, the sun 15 degrees of Taurus. And that's going to point the way once again to our revolution of our values and the rebirth of like potentially a higher understanding, a more potentially enlightened vision. That's essentially what that lunar eclipse can bring. Very powerful lunar eclipse, because it's not just a lunar eclipse, it's with the sun conjunct exactly Uranus. So it's a lunar eclipse is bringing a big wake-up call with it. So I think these 2 are going to be really powerful eclipses.
And the echoes in the human design makeup
change points, right? In this period of time, April and May. Yeah, so that's what I have for the second quarter.
So yeah, I'm just, going along with the eclipses you're talking about. The first one in the 19th of April, I call it a new moon eclipse, basically sun and moon together. And it's in gateway number 3 and the 4th line. Now, I talked about Pluto trundling along through gate 60, reminding us, are you holding yourself back here? The gate of limitations, is there a repressive environment around you that's really getting you down? And, are you giving yourself unnecessary blocks in your life? And this new moon eclipse is in the gateway number 3, which makes up the channel 60 to the 3, which is the channel we call mutation. And whenever you get a mutation, it basically means, you're not going to end up where you think you're going to end up. You take off, you jump into something, and all of a sudden you find everything's changed. The whole scenery has changed. So that's the first eclipse. And, from the human design perspective, that's pretty dramatic. And then what I call the full moon eclipse on the 5th of May. This is taking place where the moon is in gateway number 1, gateway of creativity. And let's just say, whenever creativity comes our way and we're told to just see that something very different is happening in our life, and the full moon is shining right on that number 1 hexagram and just saying, something different is going to take place here. So yeah, from the human design perspective, totally different way of saying these are revolutionary eclipses that are taking place April and May of the year. We get a little bit further on. I'm going to let you talk about June, but because Neptune is in the 36, anytime anyone comes near the 35, we all get a channel of initiation. Sorry, no, a channel of manifestation, I should say. And it's moving emotional energy to the throat. And whenever this happens, there's an opening, an opportunity to have new experiences, different experiences. Beautiful thing about any experience and why we write things like bucket lists is you've only got to do an experience once. And the whole thing for us now is to just see, what is it that's really calling to us to be fulfilled? And being fulfilled, it brings us fulfillment. And if ever there was a reason to go dancing out the other end of life, it's I'm fulfilled. I did it all. I played the whole game to the max. And so there's that real great encouragement to see all kinds of different things are showing up for us energetically. And all we've got to do is be open and willing and ready to make the jumps and moves into what is offered to us. So you're going to have a look at
the
June,
third quarter. We're going to sort of blend into that third quarter, but the third quarter basically starts at the summer solstice, and so it goes into the fall equinox. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So there's several planetary changes that are going to happen in this middle part of the year, going into that middle part of the year. And they're going to reveal a lot of the themes that we're going to be experiencing in all through the spring and into the summer, late summer, through the whole third quarter of the year. So we're going to start with Jupiter, which Jupiter's been traveling through the sign of Aries, kind of blazing a trail as much as it could with some of the retrogrades that have happened this past year. But, that's what it does, is it charges ahead in Aries and blazes a new trail. And I think we're experiencing some of that now, lots of changes just needing to happen. But then by the mid-May, by the 17th of May, actually, Jupiter's going to enter Taurus. So that's going to change, the drive so Jupiter's the drive for expansion and new experiences and growth and, opportunity, right? So it moving into the sign of Taurus, it's going to drive us in a new way to sort of break new ground, to get things grounded and structured, to innovate, to begin new objectives. While Jupiter is Aries, we had a lot of vision and a lot of possibility, sense of possibility, but now Jupiter and Taurus brings it down to earth, gets it tempered for the remainder of the year with the practical necessities of implementation. So we'll see that going on throughout, as a underlying theme throughout the year. And then the other thing that's happening this year, once every 2 years, we have Venus turning retrograde, and here we have it again in the summer. Starting on July 23rd, Venus, the planet of love and attraction and female energy and beauty and art, money, all the good, yummy things in life, going retrograde at 28 degrees of Leo. And that retrograde motion is going to go on through then the rest of July, all of August, until it stops on the 8th day of September. But even then, it's not going to, Venus won't pick up speed until like early October or so. So she's going to have this about 6-week period of retrograding through Leo. So what happens with retrograde is we sort of go back and ask ourselves questions to sort of bring ourselves up to date with whatever the planet is. And in this case, it's with our values and with our where we are with our relationship to money and relationship to well-being, to beauty, to enjoyment of life. And, perhaps it's a time of seeking to find some balance between the doing and the getting things done and the pressures of our times and, relaxing, enjoying, celebrating, playing, taking things easier. So we'll have a look at, again, we're going to be looking through our values because Venus is so much about values. And we have the other planetary energies we've already talked about that are taking us into a review of our values as well. So we're going to take a deeper look at what we express, and and what we express, of course, is based on the values that we live, and how specifically we're bringing that expression into the world. And we're going to ask, are our values and our actions in alignment? And how important is it for us to bring our own unique expression into the world? Those are some of the questions that have come up with the Venus retrograde in Leo. It's about my identity and how I'm expressing it in the world. And then another significant change that happens in the third quarter is that the soul path for humanity shifts from where it's been heading through the sign of Taurus, where we've been for the past 18 months, really working with, again, our values, what it is we can trust, a firm foundation that we can build our life on and that we can trust. And shifting now to a look at how we're taking action. So the north nodal axis of the moon moving into Aries, and Aries is all about how we initiate, how we take action. So are we taking action in ways that are working, that are being successful for us? Are there things we need to learn, things we need to adjust? So we're going to be looking at that as a whole in the second half of the year. For the next 18 months, we're going to have the North Node going through Aries, and for that whole 18 months, to some degree, we're going to be looking at humanity, our whole destiny path, and finding the need for self-actualization. So a need somehow to identify personally with the collective identity crisis that's going on in the world. What do we really need? Why do we really need to shout about how unique we are? Or can we just bring our authentic selves into actualizing our full potential? So that's the possibility of taking that whole challenge up to a higher level. Pluto, after a 10-week trek into the next sign of Aquarius from March 24th until June 12th, retrogrades then back into Capricorn again. So for the remainder of the year, after we get a brief glimpse of what can be created with greater planetary unity, they have a little vision, a little preview of coming attractions. Then we're back for the rest of 2023, still working through the transformation of our systems. So working for those significant changes that need to happen. That's the dismantling of the old structures and the old systems. It's a messy process, but it's necessary for future growth, and we're going to be very much in that for the remainder of the year,
and probably 2024 a bit too.
I mean, we have a lot of time of Pluto in Aquarius in 2024. It goes in the spring, pretty much stays there. So it's 2024 will be a building year. I feel.
It's just I was saying that because from the human design perspective, it's still in gateway number 60, so it's still giving us you've got to look at what the limitations are. You've got to see where the repression is. You've got to see where the breakout has to take place.
Change always takes, global change. It always takes so long. It's like measured in decades instead of the kind of changes we can experience in our lives. But speaking of change, so Uranus is the great change maker, change bringer. And, it's been traversing through the middle degrees of Taurus since late January. And it's going to get all the way to 23 degrees of Taurus at the end of August, and then it will retrograde. So the end of August, we're going to have that innovative, that move to new things, new levels, new experiences that it's been on pretty much all of 2023. At the end of August, it's going to then retrograde, and it's going to retrace old ground. So whatever new breakthroughs, ideas, whatever, now need a period of grounding. So it's it's kind of pushed the edges of our value up leveling, and now it gives us time to evaluate and integrate all that we've learned and see what we're going to use with that. And then finally, in the third quarter, we have another Mercury retrograde. Yay! August 23rd, it'll retrograde at 8 degrees of Virgo. But this period gives us the time to refine our newly acquired knowledge and how we, begin to relate differently to our values and our goals. And, before we push into the fourth quarter of the year, maybe a good moment to step back and look at all that we have accomplished, because it's been a real driving force in the first 3 quarters of the year. So I'll stop there.
Yeah. So looking into June, I talked about Saturn, our discipline, our approach to life in terms of, how we, I wouldn't say behave properly, but how we kind of, it's a social planet. It's basically, taking care of the needful, if you will. And it's in gateway number 37 when it does a turnaround in the middle of June, starts doing a retrograde motion. And at this point in time, it's in gateway number 37. And, there are 7 gateways in the emotion center. This is one of them. The 37 is the gateway of family, friendship and family. And so Saturn, while it is going through the 37 and then does a turn back through it, it's kind of examining or helping us examine, what is our attitude to family and community and the corporation and the people that are closest to us. Are we on the level with everybody? Are we fulfilling our part of things in our engagement with family? And if not, why not? And if we don't need to, then maybe we're being called in to have a look at some other kind of arrangement. At this same time, the nodes, the destiny path for humanity, has now moved into gateway number 3. This happens on the 23rd of June. And you're talking about it going into Aries out of Taurus. Mm-hmm. And so, for human design, we just see it's gone out of gateway number 27, which is the gateway of nurturing and nourishment, into gateway number 3, which is the gateway of innovation, dramatic innovation, because Pluto is going to be on the other end of the channel, the 60th gateway. And so, Pluto is saying, does the old work anymore? Are you okay being repressed? You okay being held back? You okay with these limitations? You can't do what you want. We're suffering under this thing called economy. The node comes along and says, maybe there's a jump needs to be made here. Maybe we need to rearrange the whole thing differently. And so, from June the 23rd through August, the end of August, this is the energy that's going to be going on. There's this channel of mutation is going to be taking place. And I can guarantee you, whether one sees it immediately or not, there's going to be a lot of shifts in terms of things that are holding us back, repressive ideas or societies or governments or whatever like that. Mm-hmm. And of course, as I say, whenever a breakdown happens like that, it's not going to happen overnight necessarily. And it may not be peaceful, but I would just counsel us all to be seeing these things, to hold the intention that the big shifts are peaceful. What is also going on at that moment in time is Pluto is doing a retrograde from the end of June, and it's in gateway 30. Sorry, I'm talking about Neptune. Neptune is doing a retrograde end of June. It's in gateway number 36. And, I've been looking ahead a little bit, and Neptune's not going to be done with gate 36 for another couple of years. It's going to drift in and out of that gateway, and it's going to be challenging our acquaintance with our spiritual nature. Are we still aligned with the party line or the whatever it is, the church or the synagogue or the mosque or whatever it is? Are we, is this still something that's relevant for us in our heart of hearts, in our sense of love and acquaintance with life on a deep, deep level? And Pluto at this time, it's got this channel going on with the North Node destiny for humanity. It's really giving us the opportunity to shake things up. To me, always one of the magical times of the year is when the sun goes into September and goes into the fall equinox. And, necessarily it's a fall equinox in the Northern Hemisphere, it's a summer equinox in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's all change. It's like the sun's over the equator, and we're in a balancing period in time there. And it's just to say, in the energy in September, we're going to start seeing we're going to look back on the year a little bit and just see, wow, you know, there's been a lot of shifts, a lot of changes going on here. And we've all had to pay more attention to our emotions. We've all had to reacquaint ourselves with our vision for life. You know, part of the play with Saturn going through the emotion center is anytime somebody drops into the 41, we get this channel of reappraising our vision, what it is that's really important for us to live out. And again, this is a feature in August, September. I'm going to leave it now while we go into the last quarter of the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to see come the fall equinox, come the middle of September or latter part of September. We've gone through an extraordinary shift in the year 2023 so far, but it ain't over yet.
Yeah, the last quarter of 2023, I was looking at, you know, it always begins at the, well, in the northern hemisphere, it's the autumnal equinox, and that's as the sun goes into the sign of Libra. So it leaves Virgo and enters Libra, and it does that this year at the turn between September 22 and September 23. So it's going to bring us into a season that is, in a sense, is going to bring us kind of a crisis of implementation, because there's been so much that's been needed to, you know, change and shift, and big decisions being made in our lives changing significantly throughout the first 3 quarters of the year, that by the time we come to the autumnal equinox, you were a little bit reeling from all the, you know, all the changes, not only perhaps external changes, but all the internal changes. So, you know, by late September, we should have maybe clearly seen what changes that we need to make. And maybe we've shifted our values to align more fully with our higher truth. And maybe we've had an opportunity to really look at the issues of our life and found some new ways to understand them or to context them. For the remainder of the year now, all the planets from Jupiter outward are going to be either in retrograde motion or returning slowly to direct motion. So we're going to find ourselves in a period where a lot of high implementation is needed, but we're still in a process kind of a lot of review of everything we've learned and all that's changed in our lives, and trying to, you know, ground all those changes. And at the same time, we're trying to implement on the new. So, you know, it's going to be an intense season, to say the least. Also, in the 4th quarter, we have another set of eclipses coming, which is going to, you know, compound the intensity of the season. Right after the autumnal equinox, we're going to have 2 eclipses. Let's see, we're going to start with the solar eclipse, which happens on October 14th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the lunar eclipse happens later. Okay, so the solar eclipse on the 14th is when the sun and the moon are together exactly at 21 degrees of Libra. So the new moon at 21 Libra, conjoining the nodal axes, the soul path. So it's illuminating the moving soul path for all humanity right now, which is in Aries Libra. So the solar eclipse is illuminating that dichotomy that we're working with, you know, how to balance self and other, our own needs versus the needs of others, how to find that balance in an equitable place. So that's question is really being highlighted with the solar eclipse. At the same time, Mars, because it did this long retrograde in the early part of this year, of the coming year 23, that it finally, after being in the sign that it's not so highly active, you know, when it's retrograding in Libra, but it's finally moved into Scorpio.
And that's its home sign.
Yeah. So we're going to see a lot more activity from Mars as it moves into the fall, throughout the fall, as it starts picking up speed and getting into some signs from from Virgo on into Scorpio, that are really a lot more active signs for so we'll have a drive to action going really strongly. At the same time, we're going to have kind of a need to balance things and to integrate all that we've learned in the early part of the year. So that's part of the intensity, and the solar eclipse, I would say, is highlighting that intensity. Then we're going to have a lunar eclipse, October 28th, at 5 degrees of Scorpio, Sun at 5 degrees of Scorpio with the moon at 5 degrees of Taurus. The lunar eclipse brings a big change in terms of that needs to be implemented. So the solar eclipse is sort of enlightened our awareness, woke us up some. We recognized what needed to happen, but now with the lunar eclipse, it's time to actually put things into action. And again, we're seeing big transformation. Pluto is at a right angle with this eclipse point, and it's saying, whatever needs to transform, let it move, let it go, let it, got to roll with it, got to let the transformation happen. Is basically what it's saying. And if we do that, then there's a very beneficial energy that comes right behind it with that Venus in Virgo and this beautiful trine with Uranus. It brings benefits that we couldn't maybe have imagined or thought, or we wouldn't have thought would happen. So if we stay true to ourselves and we do what we're being called to do, essentially that's what that eclipse is about. So as I see it, what do you want to say?
Can I talk a little bit about this last quarter, and then you can do the wrap up?
Okay.
So I'm just going to jump right into November. I'm going to agree exactly with you about the eclipses in October. Very, very powerful. Yeah. And of course, when we get to that time of the year, I will go into detail of exactly what these eclipses mean to us. But I wanted to jump into November and just say, in November, we get boom, 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 these particular channels that come in, and they're all in what we call the individual circuitry in human design. And whenever something shows up in individual circuitry, it's all about transformation. It's all about personal transformation. So we're going to ride out a lot of storms or very different kind of experiences during 2023. And by the time we get to November, we get to be able to lock some of these things in place and just say, I've got it. I know what this is about. I see where I am in my life now. And there's going to be a kind of stabilizing influence of that we're going to start recognizing. I've ridden out the storm in a way, and I now see myself as getting more and more sovereign in my own life. And we get into the December, we see a lot of nurturing and caring for ourselves and our society showing up. We see again, we get a lot of activation in that manifesting channel, the 3536. We get a lot of activation in the channel 2644, which is this channel of the entrepreneur, and kind of really giving that attunement within ourselves is, are we in tune with what our heart really wishes for in life? So I'm going to close up there. We'll get to these points in time later on in the year, and I look forward to sharing some of these revelations with you when we get there. But you have a bit of a wrap up for the...
Just to say that, as 2023 draws to a close, we're going to have the month of November, I see, is our month to integrate all the changes that were brought by the earlier part of the year, and also brought by the two October eclipses. So we'll have that time to integrate, and the energy is moving nicely to help us integrate all those changes and understandings and breakthroughs. There's some really highly dynamic planetary energies that are supporting and fueling our next steps. So we'll have that going as an underlying theme in November, and then December, we'll have the last of the Mercury retrogrades. We'll have Mercury going retrograde on December 12th, 13th, depending on where you are in the year. In the world. Mercury going retrograde at 8 degrees of Capricorn. And so it'll do that from the second week of December to January 1st. So it turns direct on January 1st, 2024. So we're going to have an opportunity in December to assess what the year has brought into our lives, how we potentially made the highest and best use of both the challenges and the opportunities of 2023. It'll be a good and sort of natural time for Mercury to go retrograde, because it's a time when we turn a bit inward and get more reflective anyway. So it's going to be a dynamic year. Of course, we'll be with you every month, once a month of every month of the coming year, with our Energies and Opportunities monthly broadcast, where we take a closer look at just the month that we're living in now. And I would really love to produce those. Really enjoy having you all on this journey with us. Remember, for those of you who feel called, if it's your time to have that special deep dive reading with Shatan, our holiday reading special is on. Grab your spot. You're going to have a life-changing, amazing opening experience in your 90 minutes with him. And then after that, I'll meet with you and we'll do some coaching on how to implement all of that into your life, into your business, to just bring you a lot more ease and greater success. So join us for that holiday reading special if you're called to do so. And yeah, we will see you. We'll actually see you later in this month, because we'll be doing our monthly Energies and Opportunities broadcast. I'm actually going to do that on the 24th of December, but sign up for it. If you can't make it live, you can always view it later. And we'll be looking at the month of January.
January 2024.
Yeah. Yeah.
January
So,
2023, I should say.
Yeah, we don't jump ahead yet.
Wow, it's been quite a
We
whirlwind
can't skip
tour.
this year.
Right, we're going to see it one way or another. So we look forward to going deeply into January 2023 with you, December 24th.
Yes, many blessings.
See you again soon.